И сейчас Slavy Slavov, компания Equify, прочитает доклад на тему «Why security testing is more important than ever» или «Почему тестирование безопасности сейчас важно как никогда».
Okay, thank you. So, seems like I'm your was told before getting the beer, so I'll try to be pretty constructive. Why security testing is more important than ever? Something very quick about me. My background is 15 plus years, mostly based in quality assurance. I've been also a freelancer in the past as a C developer, and right now working on cross-browser SaaS. So I have vast experience exactly with large e-commerce businesses. For example, we've been doing the Walt Disney e-commerce sites, the Walmart e-commerce for Europe, and also the London Olympics e-commerce store, which was a pretty big one. Some of these are generating something like, let's say, $500 million per year. I'm talking in dollars. So these, they obviously care about security. They spend a lot of money, they spend a lot of time there, and I want to show you some real examples. You've seen this. You've all seen the hacked Jeep. But what many people probably don't realize, it's not just hacking Jeep. It's practically hacking 500,000 of them because it's just internet-based. If you know their IP, you can go and do it. I've seen, by the way, the use case, and it was pretty straight how you can do it. Then these guys, it becomes even more worrying what you can do with this. Yeah, they are security researchers, and they just recently hacked a computer-controlled sniper. And what happens if you shoot the wrong person? What they did is, you see, you think you are shooting someone with one goal, but then they have modified it. You see this one person, but you practically shoot the next one. And yeah, that's an interesting one. When you open Google Maps, what do you see? You see the, let's say, the traffic. And when I saw yesterday, everything red in Moscow, 8 balls, and etc. And I was wondering, well, how they collect these data? Obviously, they collect it via my mobile device and via yours. So they grab all the data with what speed do you move, and they collect all this. And that's what happens when you just put anonymous data there. And this is, by the way, the guy who brought something like 1 million plus friends on MySpace a few years back and then got banned from it. So yes, even the big guys suffer. And if I look at the first guy who presented today, you obviously need to have some skills. You need to know what XSS is, you need to know how to exploit it, you need to know how to write, let's say, JavaScript, so you can get my personal data from my site if it's crappy, and that's the old school. But that's changing. This guy, this one with the glasses, he is teaching security. The other guys are also going and hacking some sites around. So what's next? That's what I expect next. And yeah, he will not do it intentionally. But just a sample, what I learned from my 2-year-old son. When I initially gave him a tablet, and he started like doing stuff, and I was like, whoa, how did you enter in that menu? So he was just doing some wild stuff, doing something, and I was not even able to understand what's going on. And just quickly, I was recently reviewing several e-commerce businesses around some trainings that I'm delivering. And if you look, let's say, with the old school guys, or if you look at guys trying to do some serious hacks, you need to have more serious skills. However, what I have identified is that probably about 80% of the e-commerce businesses, they look like this one. This is one of the biggest food delivery services. It is owned by a, let's say, food delivery giant. And there I have the option to donate to UNICEF. And they're telling me, yeah, how much do you want to donate? I said, $1 and then of course I tried -5, and it told me no, it should be a positive number. And I sniffed the traffic, and then I realized that they just they sent a post request with the money. And what I did, it was very quickly. Yeah, I can't change it via the UI, but I obviously can go and say that's the default amount. It's not $1 anymore, it's of course -20. And that's the outcome. Yeah, my bill, so my donation to UNICEF, it practically became my discount. And did I need any real skills about that? No, all I needed is right-click, inspect element, or F12, and you just go and do it. That's another nice one with a nice present. That's one of the biggest food supplements shops in Bulgaria, and they sell a lot. They have this nice feature that if I go and order for, let's say, right now I've ordered something for 66 level, and I'm not eligible for getting any present. But if I order for, let's say, 200 leva, they'll give me something that is, let's say, 20% of the bill as a present. And how do they do it? That's it. I've ordered something for 66 leva, and then obviously I cannot select the one that is for 600 plus leva, because it costs 3 times my order. And yeah, can't I? Again, inspect element, oh, it's disabled. No, it's not anymore. And yeah, we tried it. I have a friend of mine who is abusing that, by the way. And yeah, that way it's very, very easy how you can go and, let's say, do malicious stuff without any real deep technology knowledge. And what people focus on, they yet focus on tools. These are nice tools, so I go scan for cross-site scripting, scan for, let's say, tens of thousands vulnerabilities, but it's just tools. And as a recent example, we had this Walmart store for Europe, and they came with the request, okay, can you do a security evaluation for us? And we had a quote from UK, quote that is for about 1 million ruble, and they said us, okay, we are going to scan the site and send you a report. And I was, yeah, nice, but that's something that I can do as well. What we did is we hired guys who knew what they are doing. They practically sat down with us for a couple of days. They reviewed the whole user flow, the whole user journey. They reviewed the architecture of it, and they found 5 or 6 issues, serious issues. And obviously tools, yes, they'll catch XSS. They'll do it. But that's not enough. And unfortunately, yes, a lot of the companies, they follow just tools. Like, yeah, I have scanned it, I have a nice report, it's a proof that I'm, let's say, compliant, I have done my job. No, you have not. And what I want to really spend the next minutes is, what are the most common mistakes? I'm not going to talk about, let's say, SQL injections or stuff like XSS, but really focus on architecture. What people do usually miss and forget? Yeah, they have no server-side checks, which is kind of obvious. The first one was exactly that. If these units have stuff, they had it done properly, it will never allow a negative value then. The other one, it will also have a server-side check. Obviously, they don't. The other thing, I've seen it in really big e-commerce businesses. Just recently in a big watery site, they were selling a lot of watery tickets. And what happens? You go, you submit your order, and you see, I'm sending the money. So I'm ordering something for, let's say, $200, and it's sending something like 20,000 cents. And that's exactly how they send it. Of course, you go, modify the post, resend post, and yeah, you get less money. But you still get the same order, so you have the same number of tickets. The other thing, caching sensitive info. We had this for one of the biggest e-commerces. The guys knew pretty clearly that they should not cache any, let's say, user account information, like, let's say, my billing address, my shipping address, and etc. But what happened is that this user account information was kind of inheriting the headers. And one guy just went and said, oh, it's header, it's fixed, it's constant. Of course I'll cache it. He cached it, and this was just inherited to the account. And what happened to these guys is that I'm user A, I go, I log in, and it stores and caches my information. Then when user B goes and log in and go to his account, and he sees, oh, nice address, but it's not mine. And every other else, it's going and seeing this user address. So sometimes you don't even realize that this is happening. That's interesting one. Couple of years back, some guys, they hacked a car, but they didn't even have internet. So they were just driving near the car, and because in US for the past probably 10 years, you are kind of enforced to have wireless diagnostics, these guys were just sniffing the traffic. It was encrypted, it was nice, and what they did is they were just monitoring for patterns. They were gathering all the traffic, let's say monitoring it for an hour or so, and they put it through an analyzer, they found the patterns. They had absolutely no idea what each of these will do. But they obviously knew it's going to do something. And what they tried then is just return back the traffic. So drive to the car next time and just send some of these patterns that they have seen. And yeah, initially some of them doing nothing. One of them, unfortunately, pressed the brakes of the car, and the other one just stopped the engine. So that way, you don't really know what you're doing, but you're still able to get damaging impact. Oh, yeah, that's another problem that we got in reality. we had this nice platform that we are using for e-commerce. And of course, everything with these complicated IDs, like the user ID is really, really complicated. You can never guess what it is. But it turned out that the order IDs were just incremental. So it was like order 1, 2, 3, because we were counting based on this. And it turned out that I make an order, I go to see my order, and I see the URL with the right ID. And I say, OK, I see 2025. What if I click 5,000? Click enter, and nice, you see the order of the other guy. You see what they ordered, you see again their address, you see their personal data, and it is quite common problem. What one guy just showed me today, it's one of the big ticketing services. For example, if for this conference you want to buy a ticket, you go and you buy tickets through some platform. And this platform, when you are worked as administrator, you can go and administer your promo codes. And there you clearly see what is your account ID. And then when you see another event, you can clearly get their ID. You go, you just replace the URL with their ID, and surprise, you're already administrator in their account. You go and you see all their promo codes, even these that are for full discount, and which is even worse, you can go and add additional promo codes that you can completely abuse. Obviously neglected cross-site scripting. It's a pretty popular one, and even with our service, we had recently one, and it was nice. You go, you send a nice email to the guys, like if they just can't get, let's say, the users that we have, like, OK, cam clear, click, and if they have an active session, it can be, let's say, automatically forwarding your personal data to a hacking site. So that way they can collect billing data, personal data, pretty much anything that you want, and most people neglect it. Most people think like XSS, it should be man in the middle, so you should somehow hack my communication. No, that's not really the case. You just need to know who the users are. And then you can kind of manipulate their mind and get what you need. Inject code, that's what the guy for MySpace did. He just created a nice JavaScript, put his personal details in his profile. Then anyone who is, let's say, clicking on his profile was automatically adding him as a friend. And it was just spinning the code, sending it to the other users. So pretty much anyone who then clicks on his friends also get him as a friend. So that's the way how for over just 16 hours, he got 1 million friends. And the last one is it's stupidity. Yeah, it sounds arrogant. But what happens in many cases, if you are, let's say, a large business ready to invest, let's say, $500,000 building an e-commerce store, that's nice. But if you are, let's say, not really sure what you're doing, you see a nice web agency, they have done already pretty nice sites, usually static, never e-commerce. And they start building your e-commerce. They don't use any platform, and they pretty much hit all of these. Not one, not two, but most of these. Quickly, what are some of the best practices? How we can prevent this to happen? From a process point, first is that using common platforms, it usually saves your ass. And I've tried to, let's say, go and hack like stuff like Shopify, like Demandware, like Hybrids. I obviously face challenges there because they are using it in a very clean way. Anything that you, let's say, distribute its information is just hashed IDs and hashed information. You can't really guess it. You can't even modify it because you don't know what it should be. The other thing is that you should combine definitely tools with architecture review. You can't rely only on tools, but you can't rely only on architecture review either. Because the tools, they go and validate for something like 20, 30,000 issues. Obviously, you can't go and you can't do it manually. So you need to do it. The other thing is you should know very clearly what your data is, what the data flow is, and really be able to write something like a data chart and say, all right, so starting from the user, going to the end, let's say database, that's what data flies around, and that's the format of it. And then you should really put the correct validation points on each of these places. For example, if I know that I'm receiving, let's say, a number from somewhere, I should have the corresponding check at the other side that this is really a number in the range that I expect. Otherwise, just reject it. You should also focus on continuous integration. Doing it one time, it's risky. And especially if you have, let's say, we had a large e-commerce store. They had something like 50 deployments per day. because what they had is it was international business. They were using, like, they have one core engine and different store ends for China, for Russia, for Bulgaria, and etc. And their, let's say, teams across the countries, they were completely not synchronized. So each of them was plugging on content, doing complete deployment on anything, which without, let's say, continuous integration, it's a unique chance really to fail. The other thing, right now, there are some pretty nice Firefox and Chrome plugins that you just go, install. There are probably 10 plus at the moment for Firefox, for cross-site scripting, for injections. And you don't even need to go and test, especially for these. What you do is you just go, you browse your stuff. You are, let's say, no matter if you're a developer or QA, you just go, you log in, you work on, and it's automatically grabbing all the fields for you, and it is then trying to exploit it. Obviously, it slows down a bit the site. I've seen a case where it just brought down a site because of these issues, but then it's real-time reporting some of the issues. The other thing is what my son did, act wild. You don't know what you're doing, but you just do it. Sometimes it has quite destructive effect, especially on anything that is, let's say, more like mobile related. What happens if I click here, or if I click these three things together, or something else? You should just try it. You should know your architecture. It's pretty clear. You should know what exactly you are doing. You should know what the best practices are as far as architecture. And I would say that you should always have up-to-date architecture diagram plus the data diagram. That's really the only way how you can go and check what is going on. All right, from a pure technology perspective, what can you do? You should split your environments. Just a sample. You have a standard stuff like you have your front end, it's calling a REST API, then it goes to the database. And what happens if someone, let's say, hacks my front end? Is he going to get direct access to the database because it's in the same network? No, he shouldn't. If you have done your homework, the only way for you to access the database, it should be through this REST API and then going to the backend service, going to the database. So you should have really very clear split of the layers. And for example, what we discussed earlier about this stuff with the ticketing system, if they had done it, it will never happen. Because yes, you enter the ID of someone else, and it's going either to tell you forbidden, but I would say that in the more clear case, it should give you empty result. Because forbidden will yet means that, yeah, there is such a user. Let's try something else. Just a second. Popular approach to go and hack something is cookies. If you have a lot of data in the cookie, then it's harder, let's say, to go and brute force it. But if you have 2 or 3 things that are simpler there, brute forcing a cookie and what, let's say, the potential cookies are, it's quite easy. And if you are, let's say, relying on your session just based on the cookie, then it's pretty vulnerable. Plain text, sensitive information. I was reviewing recently an e-commerce store, pretty large one. They have 220 real stores in the UK, and they are selling alcohol. And I tried, they were having lower than the expected conversion compared with, let's say, average of 2.5. They were having 0 point something. And I tried, okay, let's see what happens. I need to register. And I registered my email, and I immediately got an email. Hello, welcome. You have just registered with user as Slavov and password 123. And I was, what? That's the password I put there. You send it to me plain text, and you want my credit cards? No way. They still haven't fixed it, by the way. And that's important. The other case that we had is, again, with pretty large e-commerce. We were PCI compliant, sensitive about the data, not storing anything like credit card data. And then we realized that we were storing all the credit cards in the audit log. So at the moment someone just go and commits it, of course, we were using third-party payment provider and we were just sending the data, but we were storing it, pretty plain text. Then we implemented exactly such continuous integration to monitor absolutely all the implementations for credit card templates. You should get audit log, pretty detailed one. We just recently had an issue with Microsoft, and we had unauthorized access to one of our accounts. And when we asked Microsoft, okay, give me the source IP, give me what exactly these guys, how did they enter it? And the answer was, for security reasons, we don't keep it. That was, what? Even when I go to Gmail, I can see the last sessions, the last places. And in their case, it turned out that they keep it, but it took them a month. It took them a month to go and to find it with their, let's say, technician guys, with the support, the third line, and etc., to really combine all this information for something that, from my point, should have been seconds. So you should always have really solid information, and if it happens, what exactly happened. There is one guy in the room, a long time ago, I showed him how to hack some stuff, and we hacked a game together. It was a flash game, and then it was, if you have a valid session, it was sending you the final score. And the winner with this game was getting some nice surprise there. And we saw, I'm sending this in a post request with my ID. It's checking if I have a valid session, and that's all. And we said, OK, let's try. I have nice score. It just became 5 times bigger. Nice, I'm first. Then I realized it's a bit ugly, and kind of it was too rounded score. I just did something like 55, let's say 100,000, too obvious. And then I just bumped the score of some other guys because they had their IDs. And then we decided, what will happen if I just send an empty, let's say, ID and empty score? We did it, click, and their whole ratings just disappeared. The whole database kind of screwed up. So you should have a very clear validations, what exactly happens when you, let's say, inject such malicious input. User data, we already discussed it. We should never, ever really cache it and keep it cached because you don't know who is going to access it. And complex IDs, you should not be able, again, to guess what the ID is. It should not be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should not be even like, let's say, I've seen some of the databases, even like Mongo. You see the template, like the, let's say, first 15 characters are just the same in many cases, and then you just rotate the last. It's too easy to guess it. So it should be something really a bit more complicated. And yeah, the last thing, just keep your fingers crossed that you don't become a target. If you become, for now I have not really seen a service that is kind of so secure that no one can enter it. Yes, if it's not some of the kids, there will be someone more experienced, but they'll again try. It's questions time.
Okay, probably I will be the first to start the questions. And my question is, you have told a little bit about the architecture review. And what do you think? Is architecture review the subject that can be made within the organization without asking people from outside to make the review? Is it possible to do a quality review within the organization?
It is. We have done it. It worked for some teams and didn't work for others. For example, for the teams who had senior enough guys to know, let's say, the implications and to know a bit more about security, it worked pretty well. And from my point, it's not whether it's internal or external, it's all about the skills. Do these guys know what they are doing or not? Even the guys who know what they are doing, sometimes they just neglect it. They don't have it as a mindset, they don't think destructive, but if you ask them to sit down and review it, they will find their flaws and their issues. Obviously, the guys who have no experience with the security, they wouldn't be able to do the job. So from my point, it's all about the skills. I partially understand Russian, by the way.
Hello, are there any ways to check, are there any tools to check your issues automatically? Only manually?
I have not seen any tool that can go and check my architecture. And that's why I raised it that 80% of the people think that if you go and, let's say, buy the HP security tools, they cost between 15 and 30,000 euro, and you kind of feel on the safe side. But that's the challenge. The challenge is that the tools cannot really go and check it because it's not like exploit, it's really by design. And if by design you are doing something that you should not, then there is no tool that can tell you, like, no, this is not good.
Yeah, but what's about empty fields, I don't know, something like that you can automate?
You can automate it with custom script, but how such a, let's say, implementation will know what the expected result is. Okay. It's really custom code in this case. And I have personally not seen any such tools. I've been, especially when I was working in Experian, we were a corporate customer of some of the biggest organizations like static, dynamic code reviews, and etc. We've passed various tools, but exactly for the architecture issues, I've never seen a tool that can fit the need.
Okay, thank you. What's about, small questions. What's about your company? What are you doing in general?
Sorry?
What's about your company? What are you doing?
You mean the current one?
That one.
That one is doing cross-browser testing. For example, if you have, let's say, SaaS, how does it operate on, let's say, 20 browsers, devices? Does it operate at all? And what the differences are? It's more into the automation business.
First of all, thank you very much for your talk. It was very important to talk about such things. And you were mostly talking about the design issues. For example, you have the list on the second or the third slide where you have listed all the things we have to think about by design. But what do you think about the pen testing as a part of the testing process? For example, if you need to implement some new features or maybe some new stuff for your shop, for example, is a pen testing is it an important part of the testing process itself? Or don't we need to make a pen testing as a part of the testing process? That's my question.
I think it is a must-have, and that's why I mentioned here that one of the process improvements that you should make is really just integrate this into your all continuous integration. So it should not be just like, let's say 2 weeks before release, I remember that I should run the scan. I run it, and then I get surprised by finding 20 issues. I start fixing them, introducing 10 new, and etc. This should be really ongoing. And even if you take some of the tools like Nessus and etc., some of them, they are pretty easy to integrate with, let's say, a Jenkins job, just go do the scan. Especially some of the, especially static analysis tools, they find some pretty good security issues as well. They are obviously not a pen test tool, but they can find some stuff that otherwise can surprise you. And I'll give you a sample. In a company, it was probably about 10 years ago. It was a security company dealing with secure data, secure email, and etc. We passed an external scan by Citibank. It turned out that they found in our code that we had a hard-coded password. So if you, let's say, go and type any valid username and password not available, someone had made that change, and you just get walked in with complete access, no matter what the real user and password was. And tools like static analysis, they'll completely catch this one. So even if it's not a security tool, they'll get it. And this should be an essential part of the process, but really like an ongoing base.
Thank you.
I wasn't here at the very beginning, so maybe I have missed it, something which I was asking now about. It's commonly said that if you're not totally into cryptography, you shouldn't try invent something there because everything was invented and you are making a stupid mistake, definitely. You were talking about some well-known general things you must adhere to when you're making your design. So what can I say about this line in the security world, where you should stop and ask the security guys, which are really into security, to work further being a developer? To a certain extent, you can do it yourself.
I'm not sure I understood your question.
Not every developer is the guy who is into the security.
Yes.
See? But definitely everybody should conform to some general guidelines, and they usually are quite okay. So can you tell what is your idea of where you should stop inventing things and inventing test cases and switch to asking people who are professionals in the specifically into the security?
Yep. I'll give you a sample with this Walmart store that we did a security evaluation. What we did there is we got on this external security company. We brought them on site. They reviewed the process, the practices that we had. We sat down then for a week with them, and we updated our best practices. So, as you mentioned, not everyone is into security. The guys can, let's say, understand some of the basic stuff, the basic rules, some of these well-known, let's say, best practices. You'll be surprised, by the way, how many of the guys just didn't know that you can just go and do this. And then we kind of put these guys through a training, and that was our expectation to them, that they'll know this basic stuff, like basic best practices, and then we continue to kind of inviting the security company to really once every 6 months to come and make a formal review. So yes, you have a border, and you can't teach everyone to be senior in security, but you should still, let's say, get the best practices that are at least understandable for them in place. Like everyone should know that they should escape their input, for example. They should know what URL rewriting it is, and etc. So, and you still need to get an external company. But my, let's say, preference to an external company is not like what we got initially as an offer. We'll charge you 11,000, 12,000 pounds for just running a scan. I want someone who really knows what he's doing, sit down with me, let's say, for a week or so, review it, and yes, he should be a professional. He should know in really deeper details, because his mindset is different. His mindset is a bit more, let's say, on the destructive side, rather than the guys, their goal is to write code. Their goal is to deliver this functionality working. Of course, with the best quality they can, but they wouldn't have this really destructive mindset. Is it beer time?
Ну, да, я думаю, что если вопросы еще останутся, их можно будет задать и позже, потому что у нас впереди вечеринка. Давайте поблагодарим Славе. И на этом наша секция на сегодня свою работу заканчивает. Спасибо вам.